This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Your body is moving, you're functioning, you're going through the motions of life. Sound familiar? But something inside of you doesn't feel fully there anymore. Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest to explain, and they don't have to look extreme to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. There's something that happens in covert narcissistic abuse that almost no one prepares you for. You think that the hardest part will be getting out. You think that once you're away from them, once the chaos stops, once the environment finally changes, that then you will feel free. But what if leaving their castle doesn't mean you're actually free? If you didn't catch last Thursday's episode, I would strongly encourage you to go back and listen to part 1 of The Vampire Effect. In that episode, we talked about what it feels like while you're still living inside this dynamic. That constant sense of walking up and down this spiral staircase that never actually leads to anywhere, where every turn feels like progress, but somehow brings you right back into confusion. We talked about how your energy slowly starts to drain from you, and how the more you try to understand, to fix, or to stabilize things, the more depleted you become. And all the while, they seem to be growing stronger, steadier, more in control. That exchange matters, because what we're talking about today is what happens after you've been living in that for a really long time. Now let's go back to the Dracula story. The victim does ultimately get away. And again, I only watched the first episode. It's a 3-part series, and I only made it through the first one. And the victim does get away, but not in the way that you would expect. He doesn't outsmart Dracula. He doesn't regain his strength and walk boldly out the door. He doesn't win. He isn't strong and clear-headed or relieved and finally back to himself. After being completely drained, manipulated, broken down, Dracula ultimately kills him. This is how he leaves the castle. Not as the same person who entered it, but as someone fundamentally changed by what happened to him. He gets out by dying inside. Yes, Dracula kills him, but here he is in the story at a convent sitting with the nuns, speaking, interacting, and trying to make sense of what just happened to him. He is physically out of the castle, but he's not the same person who walked in. Something fundamentally has changed. And the word that they use in the movie is undead. Undead means you're not fully alive, but you're not gone either. Your body is moving, you're functioning, you're going through the motions of life. Sound familiar? But something inside of you doesn't feel fully there anymore. There's a numbness, a disconnection, a sense that something has been altered in a way that you can't quite explain. And for those who are still in the relationship and feel undead, this is a form of escaping their abusive behavior. This is your system protecting itself by removing itself, even though you're still inside the castle. Now, in the movie, Johnny has left. He is no longer in the castle, but he is also no longer fully himself. And he doesn't really understand this at first. He doesn't realize it. His mind is no longer fully his own. His identity has been altered. His behavior begins to reflect what was done to him, and he becomes part of the very thing that consumed him. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. He isn't choosing harm. but the reactions are there. The impulses are there. The effects of what was done to him are now living inside of him. I cannot tell you how many clients I have worked with who have said to me, I am so afraid now that I have become the narcissist. They begin to notice their own reactions. They feel themselves becoming more defensive, more guarded, more intense. They may snap in ways they never used to. They may withdraw. They may feel anger like they never have before. And they may question their own motives. And because they don't recognize themselves in these moments, that's when fear sets in. What if I've become one of them? But what they're actually experiencing is not narcissism. It is the impact of prolonged exposure to narcissism, to manipulation, gaslighting, emotional instability. It is a nervous system that has been trained to anticipate harm. It is a mind that has adapted to survive confusion. These responses are not a reflection of who they are at their core. They are reactions to what they've lived through. The very fact that they are questioning themselves, that they are concerned about hurting others, that they are looking inward and asking, is this me? That right there is the clearest evidence that they are not the narcissist in their own story. And this is the part that I really want to speak to, because so many people, whether they're still in the relationship or have already left, will say, I feel dead inside. Reactive abuse is a real thing, and we have talked about it many times here on this podcast. And if that is something that you are dealing with, please know you are not alone. It does not make you the narcissist in your story, but it is something that needs to be faced. It is something that needs to be dealt with, and healing is very possible. Now, another part that I really want to speak to in this story is about feeling dead inside. Because so many people, whether they're still in the relationship or they've already left, it doesn't matter, feel this way. And I've had people tell me, clients and members of my Facebook group say to me, I just feel so empty. I feel broken. I feel dead inside. Now, they're not saying this in a dramatic way or not as an exaggeration, but in a very real, genuine, vulnerable way. They feel flat, numb, disconnected, like the part of them that used to feel joy and excitement in life, or even just a sense of calm and clarity, is no longer accessible. And if that's where you are, I want you to hear this clearly. That does not mean that you, the real you under there, is gone. It does not mean that you are dead inside. It does mean that your system has been overwhelmed. When your mind and your body go through prolonged confusion, stress, and emotional instability, they don't keep running at full capacity. They can't. They have to stop that full capacity in order to protect you. One of the ways that they do this is by, in essence, turning the volume down on your emotional experience. That numbness or that dead inside feeling, it's not the absence of life, it's just a lower volume. It's a form of protection. It's what happens when your system says, this is too much. I need to quiet things down in order for you to get through this. The difficulty is that when you are finally stepping out of the relationship, that protection does not immediately turn off. You don't suddenly feel everything again, and honestly, that's probably a good thing, at least initially. Again, that's another protection layer. You can be physically out, but still feel extremely disconnected internally. And that can be so unsettling. It can lead to thoughts like, is this just who I am now? Or did I lose something I can't get back? But what if that numbness is not permanent? What if it's temporary? What if it's not a loss, but just a pause? Your system learned how to protect you by shutting things down, but it can also learn how to come back online. Not all at once, and definitely not through force, but gradually, as safety and steadiness begin to return. This is not about pushing yourself to feel everything again, at least not immediately. That might be a little bit too much. It is about creating enough space for those parts of you to begin to reemerge in their own time. And they will. Maybe not in a big, obvious way at first, but in small moments. A little more clarity, a little flicker of interest, a feeling that wasn't there before, a slight sense of connection. Those moments matter because they are evidence that you are still there, that you're not dead inside. So if you feel that way, that undead feeling, I don't want you to see that as the end of your story. I want you to see it as a reflection of what you've been through and how your system has tried to protect you. Because unlike the vampire, you are not undead. You are still here. And what feels quiet inside right now is not gone. It's just waiting for the right conditions in order to come back. Now, I want to focus on one more aspect of this show, the victim's journaling. There's a scene after Johnny escapes where he's trying to make sense of what happened. He had been writing while he was in the castle, documenting things, trying to hold on to reality, trying to capture what he was experiencing so that he wouldn't lose himself completely. Sound familiar? And when he gets out, he gives those journals to the nuns that are now questioning him. He believes that he recorded the events, the truth, the details of what happened to him. And in fact, he added to it while he was there with those nuns. And as they were talking to him, they keep asking him to tell what happened next. They keep asking for the next part of the story. And he frequently tells them, hey, I gave you the journals, that you have my notes. But yet they keep asking for more information. So he continues to tell his story. At one point, out of frustration, he grabs his own papers and says, hey, here, I wrote it all down. He believes that he documented what happened. He believes those pages hold the truth, that they prove his experience, that they will anchor him back into reality. And this is important here, because when he looks at them, that's not what he finds. Instead, what he finds are the same words repeated over and over again. Dracula is my master. Dracula is God. Dracula is everything. Dracula is my beginning and my end. Page after page. He flips through them frantically, trying to find something different, something that reflects what he thought he had written.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
And the shock is clear. He doesn't remember writing that. And right here, I want to slow down for a minute, because this part is easy to miss if you're just watching it as a story. He thought he was documenting reality, but what actually came out was devotion. He thought he was capturing what was happening to him, but instead, what showed up on those pages was how completely his internal world had been taken over. His everything had been consumed by Dracula. Now, I know this is abstract, but stay with me here, because this is something I've seen over and over again, and I've even experienced it myself. When I look back at my own journals, at story after story about my husband and his behavior, I can see something now that I couldn't see then, and even for quite a while on this journey. Each story, on the surface, looks like I was trying to make sense of what was going on, of what he was doing, and I was. That is the purpose there. I was describing events, trying to understand them, and trying to process them. But underneath that, look a little deeper. Every single entry was orbiting around him. His perspective, his feelings, his needs, his reactions, his desires, his interpretation of what happened, his reality. It wasn't written in the same words as Johnny's papers, but the message was the same. He had become my reference point. He is what matters. He is what determines what is right, what is wrong, what is real, what is not. My role became trying to understand him, explain him, adjust to him, stabilize him. This is how control actually works in these relationships. It's not always loud or forceful. It doesn't always look like domination from the outside. Remember last episode, I talked about this is a prison without locks. The doors were unlocked. He could have left. But this is what makes it so crazy making. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's a slow shift in what your mind organizes itself around. Your thoughts become centered on them. Your decisions begin to revolve around them. Your emotional world begins to orient towards them. And without realizing it, they become your everything. So when you look back at your own experiences, you may not see it as clearly as, Dracula is my master, Dracula is my god, and all of that. But you might see how much of your energy was spent trying to what? Interpret them? Manage them? Make sense of them? You might notice how often your thoughts started with, why did they? Or what do they need? Or how do I fix this with them? Over time, you didn't just think about them a lot. Your sense of reality started organizing everything around them. Your pages might as well have read, Dracula is my master, Dracula is my god, Dracula is everything. Dracula is my beginning and my end. When you finally create some distance and you look back at those journals, it can feel a lot like, how did I get there? Or why was everything so centered around them? Or where did I go in this? It can feel like you lost yourself in a way that's extremely hard to explain. This did not happen because you were weak, or because you chose it, or because you deserved it. It happened because you were in a dynamic that slowly trained your mind to orient around them. All of the covert narcissistic behaviors that we talk about throughout this podcast, the coercion, the passive-aggressive behavior, the subtle control, this is how they became the center of your world without you even realizing it. You leave the relationship thinking you'll finally be able to think clearly, finally. That now you'll be able to trust your own mind again, that you'll be able to piece together what actually happened. But instead, you may find something entirely different. You find that their voice is still there. It's in your thoughts. It's in your reactions. It's in the way you interpret things. It's in the way you question yourself. You might catch yourself thinking things that don't even feel like you, but maybe they sound familiar. That, maybe this was my fault, or I'm overreacting, or it wasn't that bad, or I just need to try harder. This can feel confusing, even alarming, because you know what you went through. You know how it felt. And yet there's this other narrative running alongside it. This is the part that people outside, the people who haven't seen this or haven't lived this is the part they don't get. You don't just leave the relationship. You leave with the imprint of it still in you. Just like Johnny didn't just leave the castle, he left carrying Dracula inside of him. It is very easy here to turn against yourself, especially when the outside world is telling you, what's wrong with you? You need to move on. You might find yourself wondering, why am I still thinking this way? Why am I still triggered? Why am I still reacting this way? What is wrong with me? But what if nothing is wrong with you? What if what you're experiencing is the residue of what you lived in? When you spend enough time in an environment where your reality is questioned, rewritten, distorted, your mind adapts to survive it. It learns to anticipate, it learns to minimize, it learns to explain things in a way that keeps yourself intact. Those patterns don't just disappear the moment you leave, they come with you. That doesn't mean you've become them. Okay, this is where we will differentiate from the story. But it can feel like something inside of you is dead or is no longer entirely your own. And this is where awareness becomes everything. Because just like Johnny didn't realize what he had written, you may not immediately recognize what you're thinking, what you're feeling. But the moment you begin to notice it, the moment that you can say, wait, that doesn't sound like me, that's the beginning of separating yourself from that voice that is still lingering inside of you. You are not the voice that was placed in your head and in your heart. You are the one who can observe it, and that distinction matters. The goal is not to erase what happened. It's to recognize what was never yours to begin with. It's to gently start reclaiming your own thoughts, your own voice, and your own sense of self. Because unlike the vampire, you are not undead. You are still here. And even if something inside of you feels numb or disconnected right now, that does not mean that you're gone. It means that that part of you needs space to come back. That is the process of healing. So when you look back and see how much of your story was about them, I don't want you to judge that version of you. I want you to understand you. You were trying to survive something that kept pulling your attention, your energy, and your sense of reality toward one central point, them. And if you didn't comply, the cost was simply too high. That wasn't weakness, that was adaptation. But this is where we shift. You are no longer in that same environment. Even if you're still living in the home with them, the environment inside of you is changing. You are no longer required to organize your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions around someone else's control, not the covert narcissist or anyone else in your world. And that means something incredibly important. You get to choose what your mind organizes around now. You get to bring the focus back to yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a grounded, steady way where your thoughts, your feelings, your needs, your experiences, they're allowed to exist on their own without being filtered, minimized, or rewritten. In the movie, what was written on those pages, that wasn't who Johnny was. It was what had taken a hold of him. And when you look back at your own story, the same is true for you. That wasn't who you were. It was what you were living inside of. And the fact that you can see that now, the fact that you can question it, reflect on it, and begin to separate yourself from it, that is not a small thing. That is the beginning of you coming back to yourself. I wish you so much peace on this journey of healing. If you've been listening, learning, and starting to see the patterns in your world, but still feel stuck in these same cycles, that's not because you're missing more information. It's because this is not something you're meant to untangle alone. There's a point where understanding is not enough, and you need support and actually moving through it. If you're there, I invite you to work with me. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. If you're ready to take that next step toward healing, check out my coaching services at www.covertnarcissism.com. I am here and ready to help. And don't forget to subscribe for more empowering episodes like this one. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
Introducing Home Care Plus, a new subscription service from Lowe's that helps make life easier by giving members a hand with home maintenance. Let Lowe's tackle the tasks you keep meaning to do, like electric dryer vent cleaning, replacing hard-to-reach light bulbs, and more. Subscribe to Home Care Plus for just $99 a year and consider your to-do list done. Members get more at Lowe's. Available in select zip codes only. Cancel anytime. Non-refundable fee. Product purchase required. Terms and service restrictions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.